So let's bring in former Trump senior advisor Jason Miller and former DNC Deputy Press Secretary Jose Aristimuno. Great to have both of you here. You know, I think John Fetterman's political story is one of the most interesting in recent years, probably after the president, who has had an extraordinary political story over the past nearly 10 years. Jason, let me start with this. I'm going to play another question and answer from this Kitty Couric, John Fetterman exchange that has to do with Fetterman and Trump, President Trump meeting. Watch this.
We both survived a near-death experience, and it really changed me. And I was wondering, hey, did that change your life? Because you had probably the most profound political turnaround that we could ever recall. And that bullet, it could have been just a little to the left, I guess to the right. And can you imagine the place our nation would have been in?
Jason Miller, your reaction to that and this political story.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first, it's good to see that Senator Fetterman is in good health and that he's okay following yesterday. Of course, that's something that's very scary. But I'd have to say for Senator Fetterman that thank you for just the nonpartisan, basic human decency that he showed there by not taking the bait from a very ghoulish Katie Couric. That's just, it astounds me that there's this level of vitriol on the Democrat side. Now, the one thing I'd say is that there really seems to be this broader sickness, I think, with the political left in our country. Of course, we saw it with the attempted assassination attempts on President Trump. Remember, there were two. Thank goodness President Trump is okay, and he's the one who saved our country. You think about the very unfortunate assassination of Charlie Kirk, but even think about the harassment that's going on against people in the Trump administration now. I think of Stephen and Katie Miller, who had to move out of their house because the people were showing up and harassing them and passing out flyers and doing things. And so I think we can all learn a little bit from Senator Fetterman. Yeah. Let's take the temperature down a little bit and just be decent human beings.
Let's look at one more soundbite here, Jose. This one has to do with Fetterman's connection with working class voters in Pennsylvania and also his refusal to participate in Trump derangement syndrome in his home state. Watch.
I witnessed on the ground that he was making a connection with a lot of those workers, steel workers and other people in the region. And I was like, why is he doing events in these Democratic areas with the steel workers? And I'm like, either he's crazy or they figured out something out. And clearly they figured out something. Maybe there's some accountability on our side to figure out a way forward.
Jose, do you agree with him there?
Look, I do. And I got to tell you, I'm happy to see John Fetterman recovering. He's a good man. He's a common sense Democrat. I really do think, Martha, that when we come to the middle as a party, we do much better. But I do think that obviously Trump tapped into something, with working class Americans. I think Democrats can do that very, very well. But I agree with Jason, human decency. Before we are Republican and Democrat, we're all American, right? So we should be able, John Fetterman should be able to go to the Oval Office and sit down with Donald Trump and talk, and how can we move this country forward? That's what real politics should look like.
Absolutely. I think everybody agrees with that. I'm curious, Jason, we're talking about steel workers and laborers. We saw what happened with some of the Hispanic vote in the last election last Tuesday. Are you at all concerned when you look at the numbers that some of the voters that President Trump was able to bring into his circle may be drifting a little bit? I understand these are blue states, but what's your assessment, having watched politics for a long, long time?
Yeah, as someone who obviously was involved with all three of President Trump's campaigns, I think last Tuesday really was an outlier. You look at the two big governor races that were on the ballot, and those are both in pretty solidly blue states. You take a look at, obviously, Mamdani's win in New York, and it's been a long time since a Republican won in New York City. So I think a lot of those were kind of going back to their norms, and President Trump himself was not on the ballot. But as we move into the midterms, even as we look even further down the road, I think what people are going to realize is our country was in a really bad place under Joe Biden. And with President Trump, he's helped to turn it around. He secured our border. He's brought costs down. He's stopped wars all around the world. And I think when it comes time for the midterms and people see the contrast between the shutdown Democrats and what President Trump is going to be doing, then I think it's a no-brainer.
Jose, quick thought.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you this. I think there's no question that my party is doing really bad when it comes to polling, but so is President Trump, right? He's a very unpopular president when we look at the polls. And again, I think if we put politics aside, the same thing that the 7 Democrats and the 1 independent did to work with Republicans to reopen the government, I think President Trump should do the same. We know last night when he reopened the government, he talked about he's willing to sit down with Democrats to better and to improve our healthcare system. I think that will be great for the country.
Well, that's an interesting take. We see the outrage against those members, Democratic senators who snuck down the hall and talked to John Thune and got the government open. Big divide on your side, so it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. Thank you very much, Jose and Jason. Great to see you both.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.